No, but I've had lots to do with brutes like you. Actually, I think there is the lady that is looking for you.
Deep down south, that's where she's from. Hey, that's my missus from Mississippi. That's my baby from Mississippi. That's my girl from Mississippi. That's my blue from Mississippi. She is hot as the sun. She's the only one. That's my missus from Mississippi. When she walks in the room, all the men stop and stare. The women get jealous, y'all, 'cause they can't compare. She's a church-going woman. Know what is right.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the December 8th, 2021 public hearing for the City of Tampa's Architectural Review Commission. Welcome, everyone. My name is Zachary Greco, Chair of the Commission. If you're here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The Commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plans, elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. Staff will then present the staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the Commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as your presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes go by very quickly. Following the public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the Commissioners. The Commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based upon the City Ordinance, Chapter 27 of the City Zoning Code, the Design Guidelines, the Secretary of the Interior Standards, and the Historic Preservation Development Review Comments, HPDRC, and the testimony given at this public hearing. The ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner and agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and or approvals. If you haven't done so already, please silence all cell phones. At this point, I will ask my fellow Commissioners to introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Shauna Boyd, Interior Designer.
Susan Claus-Smith, Architect and Vice Chair.
Dan Myers, Architect.
We're also joined tonight by staff, Ron Vila, Beverly Juisak, and Kamaria Pettis-Mackel with the City Attorney's Office.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Will the Commissioners please state whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
None.
None.
Additionally, will the Commissioners please state on the record whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
None.
None.
Okay, thank you.
None.
Thank you, Kamaria. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Moving down the agenda, under continuations, there are none reflected on the agenda, but we had one after the agenda was finalized come in, and that is case ARC 21-541. This is for the address of 308 East Idlewild Avenue. This was requested by the agent to be continued to the February 7th public hearing, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. And if we could get a motion for that, please.
I move to grant a continuance in case ARC 21-541 for the property located at 308 East Idlewild Avenue to the public hearing on February 7th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes.
Thank you for that motion. We're ready to move to the swear-in. Ms. Juzak will swear in everybody that wishes to testify. Please stand up and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be providing this evening is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Moving to the first case that is reflected on the agenda is ARCT, which indicates this is for the ad valorem tax exemption, 21-03. This is for the address of 1208 North Howard Avenue. This is in the West Tampa National District. This current structure is pending local designation. As past action as reflected on page 3 of your staff report, the Historic Preservation Commission recommended approval of this landmark designation. This was in 9/21 of 21. It is currently scheduled to go to City Council on February 17th, 2022. They will have to do 2 readings, but once it goes through City Council, it will become a local landmark. So if the motion this evening is a positive motion, that would be one of the conditions that this approval will move forward for the ad valorem, contingent on approval of City Council for a local landmark. And that is reflected on page 4 of your staff report, just to give you some guidance. I'd like to, at this time, go through the photo presentation. It's a little different than what you usually see. This is, like I stated, in the West Tampa National District. Property in question is highlighted in the screen parcel here. This is Howard Avenue. And as you continue Howard to the north, you'll have the interstate that it will bisect. And I'll show you that in a current aerial. Just wanted to spend a minute to call out that, West Tampa is known as Ybor City is as the cigar capital of the world. You have a cigar factory here in the early 1900s. And then you have a cigar factory that was here that kind of flanks the commercial buildings that are in between. You have a commercial building here that we're looking at this evening. And then you see the row houses that were very important. This is where the cigar factory got their workers from. So you see the footprint of the structures and the proximity of the houses to the cigar factories. This is, before automobiles came vogue and people would walk back and forth to work. This is a current overhead shot here. Property in question is the period building. It's a 1-story building on Howard Avenue. And as I stated, as you go down Howard to the north, you see the interstate here to get a point of reference. This is the front elevation that's been modified, and the agent will share some other photos with you. This is Howard Avenue. So this is the east elevation, and this is the south elevation. Looking directly at the east elevation, which is the front elevation off of Howard. Once again, this is the east elevation, and this is the south elevation. There is a open alley that will be improved as part of this project. Moving around to the rear elevation, which is the west. There is a courtyard there that will accommodate parking. And just the last photo I'm going to share is just, once again, this is the rear. You see some of the openings that were there, that were closed in, and then with the parking courtyard. At this time, the agent could address the board.
Hi, good evening. My name is Peter Hauerstein. My last name is spelled H-A-U-E-R-S-T-E-I-N. I am president of AIA Tampa Bay and the architect of record for the project. Thank you for taking time to hear about what we're doing in the West Tampa National Historic District. So as Ron was explaining a few moments ago, we are on 1208 North Howard Avenue. You can see where the property is. It's just south of the interstate at the red dot on the screen. And what we're showing here is the current property survey. So you can see that there is a building on the lot. Part of the lot has the concrete parking lot that you see now. That actually is not a parking lot right now. That was part of a building. We understand that that building was struck by lightning some time back, and they took the back portion of the building down. It's actually an interior slab. The front sidewalk, you could see on there also, is in poor condition, and we have improved on improving both of the back parking lot and the front sidewalk to bring more elegance to the street. I'll move this up a little further so you can see. We'll be able to get 4 parking spots in. We've already gone through the city of Tampa for design exception 1, which they approved to have those 4 parking spots and bike parking. And on the east side of the building, we'll improve that sidewalk and add a grassy area to match what's in front of the cigar factory right now. What we'll be using the property for, as Ron had spoken about, is for AIA Tampa Bay's new headquarters and home office. So it's going to house AIA Tampa Bay. It's going to house the Center for Architecture and Design, where we're going to serve not only our members, but the community through programs that we'll have at the center. You can see in the front facade, there are architectural elements that were very common back in the early 1900s, with the cornice work on top, some corbelling over the window openings, and brickwork on the bottom. We'll have some details of those so you can see those things. Our purpose for the outside of the building is to remove all of the elements that they had put in to kind of hide those elements that were there in 1904, to bring back what was happening on the street front back when it was such a vibrant neighborhood, and we're helping to do that. You can see the cornice work up there and the corbelling and the dentailing that's happening. It's in relatively good condition. We are going to restore it, and it's going to be painted. We'll show you some colors as we get into the presentation. But this is part of the characteristics of the building that we want to maintain. Also, back in 1904, there was interstitial space between the roof and the attic, and these are typical to the buildings of that time. There are vent ways to make sure that the attic was vented and that water damage didn't happen through moisture. We're going to keep those and also accentuate those so people can understand what those were. And then the base of the building, again, this is extremely typical detail for that period of time, where we have the nice brickwork at the base of the building that you can appreciate as people are walking to and from the neighborhood. Maybe it was a cigar factory, and we're going to clean that up. You know, we looked into exposing the brick, and we found out through investigation, and had some experts out there, that if we were to try to expose the brick, that the brick would come off along with the paint. It's in very poor condition. It is yellow brick and white brick. The white brick in particular is very deteriorated, so we're going to clean up what paint is on there and then repaint it a white color so we can preserve the existing brick that's there instead of taking it off by mistake. You can see some of the damage that is done to the brick right now. You can see in this photograph, there's a lot of pocking in the brick. There's a lot of deterioration. Some of the brick is missing on the front. And so this is the brick we want to preserve. This is the brick we want to make sure that when we take the paint off, that the brick doesn't come off with it. This was the original building. We want to keep it as best we can. The openings were bricked up. You can see the difference in the brick. If I move the photograph down, you can see it's much cleaner. It's more perfect, if you could say. This is the brick that we know that was put in when the original openings were closed up. So they closed that up. Our intent is to take that brick out, expose the original openings that were there. We're going to have a plate glass window. We're not going to have mullions in there because we want to leave it to everybody's imagination of what was there. There are no pictures of the building. There's some pictures of the north side of the building. There are none of the south, so we have to use that set of pictures and what was happening in the neighborhood the rest of the way as inspiration for making sure this building is brought back to where it was. The south side along the alleyway is very different from where it was in the old days. It's been bricked up with CMU. It has some windows in there. Electricity came in. They put tons of boxes on the wall. There's lots of conduit, not only for electricity, but for gas and water. Our intent for this side is to find out what's abandoned and have that removed so we can clean up the facade as easily as possible. And then the rest of the elements will stay there. There will be a new window going in that's going to match the small window that's there. The grills come off. And the purpose of that is there's going to be another restroom, and there is an opening, an existing opening where it was. We'll take that part and add a window in that for that restroom. And again, the south facade, you can see the damage that was done. The roof is hanging. There's beam pockets where you can see where the old or the older Choice had gone into that building when they had built this new portion. We assumed this was the original back to the building. You can see, especially here on the right-hand side, some of the older windows with the arch top on it. That particular window is boarded in. We're going to take that board out, reset it with brick, set it back from the facade a little bit so you can see where the old window was and appreciate it. Those other openings were interior doors. So those interior doors are going to come out. We're going to set those back in with some glass storefront to match the storefront that's happening on the front side. This is a sketch of the proposed elevation of the building. This is the front elevation, the one you'll see from North Howard Avenue. You see we're maintaining all the original brickwork that's on there, and we're opening up those windows so that you can see what it was like walking down North Howard Avenue back in 1904. And as a quick rendering for what it'll look like at the end of the day, this is what we're hoping that the building's going to look like once we finish our repair work from the outside. There's some inside features we're going to talk about as well. You can see again the storefront, black trim, gray for the vents and also for the cornice going around the top. We're going to have some period appropriate lighting going on the outside, and the alleyway will be restored as well. We would like to restore it. We understand that the cigar factory next door has it in their scope of work, so we are working with that architect to make sure that it gets brought up to speed. For colors, we have a white for the main body of the building, and as I was explaining, the cornice work up top and the vent work would have the highlights of the cityscape gray. The lighting fixtures that we're proposing would be these. They would be in between each one of the windows down North Howard, and we're also going to have a couple of these, since you're going to see them from North Howard Avenue, highlighting the brand signing for AIA Tampa Bay and Center for Architecture for Design on the south facade. YKK is going to be our storefront window of choice. We're going to use black trim, despite the colors that are there. They have the black, so we're going to use the black on those storefront windows, the storefront doors, also on the south side and on the east side. On the east side of the building, the left-hand door is going to be a YKK door. Slim Pack, which is a door that you see in the image below, has offered to also enhance the building with us. So that's going to be the right-hand side door. It's going to be a Slim Pack door. That's actually going to be the main entry because that's off the parking. And so this will go right into our entryway. It'll come off the parking. And whether it's the YKK doors or the Slim Pack doors, it's going to open up the views to the historic cigar factory to the south of us, which would be great. To tie in with the color of the rest of the lighting, we do need some safety lighting on the building. These are the fixtures that we'll be using on the south side and the east side of the building for safety. And we will remove the wonderful interior slab that is providing parking now, and we'll improve that with some pavers. Colors still need to be selected. It'll be a herringbone pattern so it can withstand the traffic flow coming in and out to our parking spots. And when the spots aren't used for parking, we're going to use it for community events and board events as well. We'll move to the inside of the building. Let's see. Oh, sorry about that. So on the inside of the building, there's a couple of things happening on the inside, but it's really the eastern side, or rather the western side on North Howard, this area here that has historic elements. And those historic elements are a terrazzo floor and a stamped-in ceiling and some older casings around the doors. We'll get into some of those things a little later, but our intent is to keep all of those floors. One of the things we want to do is we're going to keep them. We're going to restore the floors. Where walls are removed for the new space, we're going to have a terrazzo company come in, match the color of the terrazzo so that it's continuous from one side to the other and it matches what would have been there. The bases on the floors are a combination of things, but we did find this clay tile base. It's about 8 inches high. That's all going to stay in place. It's going to be painted out a different color so it matches the new color scheme on the inside. But we're going to keep that, and where we take clay tile base off some of the existing walls, we're going to use it to patch the other walls together. The clay tile base wasn't the only base that was used. As we can see in the other one, there are things in this North Howard side of the building where the base was a wood base. So where we're putting new base in, we're going to use the wood base so we don't confuse it with the original base that was there. And we don't think it was original. I got 2 more pictures coming, but we'll get to that in a second. The stamped tin ceiling. So we have a couple of pictures of that right now. Over the main portion of that North Howard side is 2x4 acoustic ceiling. It's hiding what's there, but it's stamped tin ceiling, complete with the crown molding going around. We're gonna save all of that throughout that entire half of the space. There is one office that was improved, so you can see how it's gonna look. Our stamped tin ceiling is gonna be painted white instead of the brown. And all of these elements are only on that North Howard side of the building. The back side is carpet and concrete floor. So we're really talking about what's happening on the North Howard side. You can see a good image of the main space of the North Howard side there and what it looks like now. And this is an important image, not just so you can see what's happening, but you can see a wall there. And this gave us some clues as to what was happening in the building. And that wall actually dies into one of those old windows. So we know that wall isn't a new wall. And we also know that the green colored terrazzo actually follows that wall. So the terrazzo on the wall went up, we assume, in the 1930s, but we want to preserve it anyway. It's still part of the building. The stamped tin ceiling also follows all those walls that were put up sometime after. So we're going to preserve those. We're not going to touch them at all. And in fact, at the top of the wall you're looking at there is some crown molding. So we're going to cut that wall short of the crown molding, make it look like one of the beams that's already there, and preserve even the crown molding in that particular location. We thought about the outside windows, and so we did an investigation to find out were there transom windows over those, because back in the day there might have been transoms over the storefronts. We found right over the window here, we found the original header. We know that that's where it was, and above that is the corbelling that happens on the outside of the building, which is original. We know it's original because of the shape of the brick and how it's been deteriorated. So we know when we open up that front facade, we're going to have the storefront windows. It did not have transoms at the time, is our belief. One of the doors that we found still inside there, and this is the office door. You can see the green terrazzo there and the tan terrazzo. These are going to be the doors throughout our office space. So we're going to keep this door. We're going to repurpose it. We're going to put it on one of the offices, and the rest of the doors within the office space, and that's the North Howard side of the space, are going to have that same style door. Same proportions of glass and the same proportions of the wood. We'll get appropriate hardware for today's codes, but aside from that, that's what it's going to be. And that door also, you can see, has period appropriate casings. And these are the casings we're going to replicate not only in the office area, but throughout the entire building. They're hunkier, they're a little fatter, they have a nice base to it, which you'll be able to see in this photograph here. Down here you can see it has the fatter base, it's period appropriate. We're going to replicate that throughout the project. It's an unfortunate photograph, but it's one well worth talking about. You can see the one restroom that's in there right now. That floor is different from the rest. It is terrazzo, but we're going to clean that up. When we make the bathroom big enough for the entire space, we're going to take that terrazzo out and redo it so that it matches what comes in the kitchen on the other side, and it's all continuous. This is what the proposed space will look like at the end of the day. As you can see on the North Howard side are our offices. We have 4 offices. We have the restroom. We have a new restroom on the other side of that demising wall in that space where our gallery is going to be. And that gallery is for community events, it's for art galleries, and is that telling me to stop?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm almost done. You want me to stop or keep going?
Let's stop, and then if we have any additional questions based off that, you'll have time to
The rest
answer.
are finishes and things for going forward, but we hit on all the historic items.
Thank you.
Yep.
At this point, staff will present the staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Velam, staff with Historic Preservation. The request this evening is for an ad valorem tax exemption, Part 1. This is pre-rehabilitation. So through this adaptive reuse request that you saw this evening, we look at the exterior and the interior, where a lot of other requests we just look at the exterior. If this moves forward tonight, staff is involved with the process throughout the rehabilitation, and then he will have to come back for part 2 of the ad valorem to show you the post-rehabilitation. When we met on site, we look at the building and see what the building is telling us. There's a lot of scarring that's left behind. You have to do some forensic work that they opened up some walls to kind of see exactly what's there. If there's missing elements, the Secretary of Interior standards state that you could use an appropriate alternative material. So the materials for the storefront doesn't have to go back to a wood storefront that would have been originally there of the period. So the products that he showed tonight are consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we will open the hearing to any public comment. If anyone would like to speak? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Thorpe, Patrick Thorpe. Do you need my address or no? Okay. I'm the 2019 AIA Tampa Bay president and a current trustee for the Center for Architecture and Design. I'm here to speak in support of this project. A lot of what we heard tonight centered around automobiles and walkability in the neighborhood. This is something that's very personal to me. The fact that this building used to be a bakery is something that I absolutely love, because it was very common when the cigar factories were in operation that you would see one person who would be carrying a ton of loaves of Cuban bread to the factory so that everybody could have lunch that day. And we all know that that person had to walk from their home to the bakery to the factory. And a lot of times, they actually had to cross the Hillsborough River if they lived in West Tampa and worked in Ybor City or vice versa. So it was very common to see people carrying bread up and down the street from their favorite bakery to bring in for lunch. So I really like the fact that Peter and his team have taken a lot of care to open up the storefront back to address the streetscape and try to improve pedestrian activity and walkability. We know for a fact that parking minimums are terrible for cities, and I think that we should all look at Kathy Castor's Pride Grant as an inspiration to strive for continued improvements within neighborhoods and modern transportation solutions that slow cars down to appreciate the surroundings and really to help improve safety in neighborhoods, which also echoes our mayor's Vision Zero initiatives. So I'm really appreciative of the fact that we're taking our time to create a storefront that will help potentially slow cars down to take a look at what's happening with this historic structure, because as we know, Howard Avenue heading north is a 3-lane superhighway, and the only reason cars don't drive any faster is because of the potholes, and that's probably a good thing. But when you're driving at speed down a road like this, your cone of vision is very narrow. So if we can help start a catalyst that creates a space that will get cars to slow down, you improve safety, and for every 10 miles an hour that you slow down, your field of vision increases. So you actually do start to appreciate the rest of the neighborhood and all the character that it has to offer. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against? Okay. At this point, we will allow commissioners to ask questions. Would a commissioner like to begin?
I do have questions. So I'm going to start from the top of the list that we didn't hit, just to cover those, to make sure we get them in there. You were going over materials, and you started at the exterior, but you didn't finish the exterior. So if we could start from the roof down and just make sure that we hit all of those. So roofing, and then any other materials at the exterior that we didn't get to.
Yeah, so the roof that's there, as you can see from the photographs, is, well, it's done. So it's going to be replaced. It's going to be replaced with a membrane roof. We're going to put insulation on underneath that, because right now the building has no insulation. There'll be copings to go around the building. They'll be white to match the rest of the paint. Where metal trim were to touch the cornice, we would have a gray color to match that cornice too.
So before you move down the rest
Yes.
of the building, have you done your due diligence in terms of the roofing design with the insulation, and are you sure that the existing roof line will take care of any slope that you might need to carry
Yes,
for the insulation?
the roof
and
is
the
already
roofing?
sloped. So we can use flat insulation to build up. It's gonna be about 5 inches insulation, and there's plenty of room between the top of the parapet.
So no
and where
need
the
to
roof
worry
is.
about a parapet condition or anything like that?
Correct.
Okay. And then are there other exterior materials besides the brick that you might need to replace, that we need to
There
know
are
about?
no other exterior materials we need to, other than the windows, which we
Okay.
talked about the windows and the doors. The brick is gonna be painted out, and we're gonna have the brand signage on the south side, and we're gonna have a blade sign on the North Howard side.
You talked about the sidewalk at the east elevation on Howard being replaced as a component of this project, correct?
Yes.
And do you have that indicated on your plan in terms of its scoring and then what the finish would be for that?
I would have to look more. It is on the plans. We just received a civil plan from our engineers a couple of days back. I didn't look at it in that much detail. It was offered to us at that point in time that it could be a good thing to do, which we would love, because you can see it's not
Yeah.
It's not nice, it's not even, it's not ADA accessible. So the sidewalks can be made accessible. If there is scoring that's appropriate, we'll make sure that that's included part of the project.
And then, I can't recall, I do drive by this property all the time. I think it has granite curbs, is that correct in that location still?
Let me see. I can tell from the photograph. I don't recall. It's hard to see from the photograph, but it is possible, yes.
Okay, so typically, when properties come before us, that is an element that we also consider, that the granite curbs stay in place. And
Okay.
if they cannot remain in place, that there is a process within the city that the city takes ownership of that and works with the project team to ensure that it gets reincorporated. If not, they work through that with you, but we'll make that more than likely a condition if this moves forward.
Great.
In terms of the exterior, before we go interior, is there any fencing and or gates on this project? And if so, do you have any imagery that
There-
indicates what that would be
Well, let's
and the materiality?
There is an existing fence that is put up. It is a chain link fence with barbed wire on it. That fence will come down,
Okay,
and on the eastern side of the property, it's going to be replaced with an 8-foot-high wood fence.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Yep, it's going to be replaced with an 8-foot-high wooden fence.
And do you have a design?
I do have a
image?
design. I don't have an image of that design.
You have a drawing? Sorry.
Yeah, we have it in our set of drawings, but I don't have that. I don't have that with me. Ron had a photograph that showed it better, what the existing fence is, but you can see here the chain link that,
So do you
That's
have an
fair.
image or a drawing of
I don't
what
have
the
an image of the
proposed is?
proposed fence.
Okay, or the drawing. And what about the gate?
There
I
will be
assume
no gate.
there will be no
We're
gate.
gonna leave the south side open,
Okay.
and we're just gonna have the fence as a privacy fence between us and the adjacent property.
So an opaque wood fence,
Yes.
not open rail and that sort of thing?
Correct.
So, moving to the interior, you had started talking about the flooring, and you pointed out the terrazzo, the existing terrazzo, which had the green and the lighter color, and then you were pointing out the one that existed in the current restroom. Are there other flooring choices, or are you gonna put terrazzo throughout, or keep the concrete slab in the other portions of the spaces?
We're gonna keep the terrazzo in the locations that it exists, which is the North Howard side of the building. The rest of the building right now is a glue-down carpet. We're gonna take that carpet up. We're gonna put an LVT carpet down in some locations. I'm sorry.
LVT.
We're gonna put carpet down in some locations and LVT down in others.
Okay.
There's I can point to you where it would be. The LVT would be in this area here where the bar and the entry area is.
Okay,
And then the gallery and the rest of the rooms would have the carpet tile.
okay. I think that's it for my questions right now, so if anybody else.
You're opening up the windows. This is kind of there's a chain of kind of questions here. The building was initially a bakery or a restaurant?
It was initially a restaurant. It had a lot of uses over its years, as you can imagine, but it started out as a restaurant that served at the cigar factory. And then over time, bakery was one of the things. It was a yeast factory, so Fleischmann Yeast for a while. It had time as a furniture shop, and then most recently that we know it's just like storage for whoever owned it.
Okay. Because you're opening up the windows, and we're all now trying to pay attention to pedestrians, but you have mostly blank walls, like you're going to look through those windows and you're not going to see much. And I was wondering about that.
I'm glad you're asking.
What?
I'm glad you're asking. Yeah, so it would be blank walls, right? So about 4 feet off, you're going to have a blank wall for the office. They're 9-foot high walls, by the way, so we don't interrupt the ceiling. But our vision for this is to get a mural to be put on the walls. It wouldn't be a bold mural, but it's going to be a mural that talks about architecture and the history of Tampa Bay. So when you're walking by those windows, you know what's happening inside the space. It's not just a blank white wall.
And I guess because you have made this decision to keep the wall, which is not original, right? Because it was a restaurant, so I would assume that there would be more seating. There was more seating there than, so you've got this 30s wall in a 1904 building.
Yeah, that wall's coming down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
I have to say, I didn't understand that either.
Right.
I'm following his line of questioning, and I actually
Yes.
have the same concern.
So that
But
wall-
I believe you said that everything from 1930 whatever, wall, trim, terrazzo was staying, and the tin ceiling.
The walls we're taking down for a few reasons. One, because it impedes the original windows. If we open up the windows, we're gonna see an old wall. So we're gonna appreciate the old walls that were there, and I'm looking for the one plan that I had because you could see the difference between the two. We're gonna appreciate the locations of those 1930s walls by the pattern of the terrazzo on the floor, and by the pattern of the stamped tin ceiling on the ceiling, because that shows what's happening there. The stamped tin ceiling, if we look at it, let's see, we'll put these side by side so you can see the difference between the two. So the terrazzo around this wall, there's a green line here that goes on either side of that wall. The green terrazzo also goes around the perimeter, and it comes around the kitchen. It does not go into here, and there are spots where it doesn't exist. Even though there's a wall there, it didn't exist on that wall. I'm not sure what the thought process was behind it. This wall doesn't have the green line. The green line comes through that wall and goes around the kitchen, but then it stops at the bathroom. You saw that was an unpolished terrazzo or some other material. So the way we're going to know where those walls were are the new walls are only going to be 9 feet high. It's a 12.6 high ceiling. So when you're in that space, you're going to be able to see over the walls, and you're going to be able to see the pattern of the stamped tin ceiling. I'm going to put this here too, so you can see all three. You can see how the stamped tin ceiling actually has a different pattern, even from the walls that were there. It does follow the pattern around the restroom and the kitchenette that's there. This looks like it picks up the beam that's on the other side. There's also another beam here, and of course this wall here. So we're going to leave all that there. You're going to be able to see where all those original beams were and the corners work, because none of the walls are going to go to the ceiling, not even the bathroom walls. We're keeping those low. We're putting a lid over it for privacy, so you can see over them no matter where you are within the space. And then for the terrazzo, if you're in this office, for example, you can see where the old wall was. You can have a green line going down the middle of the office. And you can go, what's that green line for? And you can tell a story.
But it seems to me like so you're going to paint a little mural, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're going to paint a mural on the wall of the two smaller offices. And then you have this long wall that represents something from the 1930s that forms the border of the terrazzo and the tin ceiling, right?
Yes.
So that north-south wall, and then you have this large open space that is going to be very active. And my question was, we're trying to activate the sidewalk. It would seem more appropriate to have that more active space on the sidewalk, and you're going to put a mural there, so that's that's a reasonable response.
Okay.
But I didn't understand why this choice was made to not put the most active space at the front.
Well, part of it is space. The back space is our gallery space. It's where we have our board meetings. It's where we have community events. And, we could have 30, 40, 50, up to 80 people at those events. The front space simply isn't big enough to hold that much of an audience.
Right, but I don't
Yeah.
understand the reason for keeping the wall. I guess that's my point. The
For-
wall that is back from, the wall that forms the west wall of the, yeah,
There-
it goes north and south. It forms the west wall of the offices.
There is also a change of elevation there. There is a step.
Oh, there's a 6-inch step.
There is a 6-inch step.
Okay.
So right here, there is a 6-inch step that goes down. You're higher here, you're lower there. So that's also another reason we actually have to put a ramp there to make sure that we can keep the front and the back accessible. So there wouldn't be good flow if we took the wall down. There'd be a step in the middle of the space.
Or you'd have to get rid of the terrazzo. You'd have to raise.
We'd
the
have to
floor.
cover the terrazzo. We wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
got it. Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you. Yeah, I probably would have answered some of those, but yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you for that.
Is there additional parking off-site for the building?
There is not. There's street parking that can be used. We're also looking into speaking with St. Leo's to see if for larger events that we can rent space out. At that point, it's 2 blocks up in the other cigar factory that Ron had pointed up next to 275. And if the cigar factory moves forward with their plans to renovate into a hotel, we'll also speak with them to see if we could use that if needed.
I don't have any additional questions.
I have one question for the exterior. So we've looked at what the roofing is, the exterior brick kind of exterior side of that.
Mm-hmm.
For any of the entrances and doors, do you have any plans to do any sort of covered overhangs or recessing those doors in, similar to what you would see in some of the historic districts such as Ybor, where you kind of pull that door in to create some separation from the rain and elements?
No, we didn't have any plans for that. The building that's just to the north of it, their door is on the corner, so they have one of those unique conditions where they have an overhang thanks to the corner. It's at a 45-degree angle. We had no reference photographs for the rest of that block, and so we were keeping the door. It looks like to us from our investigations that the original door was in that location, and that's part of the reason why we're keeping it there.
I also sort of have a concern with, I think the idea of activating that front Howard side is going to be crucial and important. Being an architect and understanding what goes behind the design, some of these conversations, I think a lot of the times, a lot of these exhibits that the AIA does can become part of that conversation speaker, or portion of starting those conversations. And I do think there is a big miss right now with placing all of those offices along that Howard side, even though that from the building perspective, you do not see that as the front door. You're seeing that more from the west side. You're losing a lot of the interactions of the typical people, and especially what Mr. Thorpe was saying is, if the idea is to slow traffic down, get people to pass this, start a conversation looking at that, you're losing a huge opportunity to pull people in by allowing them to see some of these larger gatherings, seeing some of the models, seeing these presentations. When you're doing the AIA Architecture Week, when you have all these big events, what will you be seeing? You're going to see a static mural that's going to be presented on that wall. How often will it change? Just a personal opinion, I think you're going to be losing a lot of interactions with people. Whereas, and I understand the elevation change and all that. Did you look at an opportunity to pull that front space, even with that elevation change, towards the front?
Oh, we did. We started there.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been wonderful to have that right off North Howard. And we started there and we looked at it intensively for a while before we had to just move it back to the other side. Things weren't working out the way we had hoped.
And so what you're sort of finding from your studies is The wall that's running north and south that kind of divides the larger gathering space and those offices, you assume that's from sort of the 1930s timeline.
I am not sure where that wall is from. It's not a bearing wall. There is a knee wall on top of it, but it doesn't seem like the roof is bearing directly on it. I think, looking at the structure, that it does span past that wall. But I couldn't tell you when that wall was placed, when it's there, from the investigations that we did.
Okay. Have you guys done any sort of researching down within what's below the carpet? Is it sit on a concrete slab
Concrete
or?
slab.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any additional questions?
I do have another question. The property, this property, is it attached to the adjacent, whatever it is? 'Cause
Yes.
you're not taking up the whole building.
No, we have, well, it's two buildings, but the facade continues past it, and I don't know if my photographs show that.
And I guess this is maybe a question for staff. If this portion of the building becomes a historic landmark, does the rest of it follow suit, or?
There are two separate ownerships, and there are two separate addresses for this parcel. And if we could go back to
Yeah.
my screen,
Yeah.
I could share that with you.
Thanks. Yeah, mine does not show it.
So there's a series of photos here that I have. Here, this is looking from the south to the north. This is the property that we're looking at here. And although they share the same coping and dental molding, if you look at the penetrations themselves, they differ. They talk about, or there was some discussion today about putting maybe some horizontal component in here, maybe over a door to define the door. It becomes very problematic with today's code. This is grandfathered in, but there's dimensions from grade from the sidewalk to the underbelly of that, and then the projection from the facade to the street. So it'll be very challenging to probably put that in at this particular time. There are some additional concerns that were raised tonight about the curbing. There is a granite curb that's here in place, and then the sidewalk has the modules that are more period appropriate. They're about 3x3 modules that are more historically correct as well.
I have a further question. I know that you showed in your elevation signage. Was any of the signage projecting, or is it all?
We have one blade sign coming off the
Can I see
front
that again? I'm
door.
sorry.
Yeah. So the blade sign is there, and we'll have branding there. This is not the final design for either one of them. We know it's going to be a blade sign. There's also a rebranding going in place for CA&D, Center for Architecture and Design, and so we have to wait to see what the final outcome of that is.
So they will share the sign?
Yes.
Or, okay. Alrighty. You know, I just thought of one more thing in this image. The door, the new entryway. I noticed in the imagery that Ron just had up that there is a step up.
Yes.
And typically you can't step directly into, by our current codes, to step directly into a doorway. Is there some accommodation for how we enter buildings today that we have to consider in this project, or will it be pretty much within that?
The civil engineer is lessening the height of that step through their rework of the sidewalk.
Okay.
So they're bringing it up to a more appropriate step up. There's also a step up, you can't see it in the rendering because it's, well, just a rendering, but there's a step up on that south door that you see in the photograph also.
Yeah, but the south door isn't
Yeah.
your primary entry, right? It's not intended to be your primary entry, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's just a way in and out. It's a way to see the cigar factory to the south, and the back doors will be flush. They'll be accessible entrances.
Okay. All right, that's it for my questioning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for either staff or the applicant?
I
Okay.
have none.
At this point, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
I have none. I just thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll close this portion of the public hearing. The commissioners can now discuss the case. Would a commissioner like to begin?
I honestly can't remember if we can make any kind of commentary and if we go forward with an approval with conditions on this at all in regards to the interior. I know that there is some language about the use, the appropriate use of a change in use. And I think the discussion point about the historical use of it having possibly have been a bakery and then a restaurant at some point, when you look at them from an architectural perspective, they always have the public realm and then the private realm. And sometimes they have that dividing wall because you don't want to see all the industry behind it. You don't want to show all the mess. But there's always that public face. And I think the discussion points being made today about the offices and thinking about where the AIA is today in Ybor City and how wonderful that is to walk by it and into it and see that vibrant energy. When you're talking about helping revitalize a neighborhood, and you know I applaud the institution for doing this and making this move, because certainly this area of town has been needing as many activating entities as possible to help with that revitalization. And you make that statement so boldly, but then you put offices there, and I agree with the sentiment. Mural's going to be lovely, but it is not active. It is a very static thing. And when you can peer into windows, especially because you intend to put plate glass windows in, there's something about that idea of display, right? The idea of a storefront with things on display. The activity being on display is the thing that drew people into bakeries and into restaurants, not to mention the aromas, right? So, and I can imagine driving on the street and at some point seeing the AIA, my professional institution, being in that space and showing off, right? Mm-hmm. And even bringing in the community, the local community that really probably would love to have some of that engagement with our profession. And just seeing a body of people come together and seeing all that activity, not hidden behind a wall and not hidden behind office space. Because most of the time those offices are going to be empty at night when everybody can go out and do things, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know how appropriate it is for us and what we can do in terms of entering a condition on this application, but I think historic public or use of this structure and sort of that diagram of public first, private, or messy last in terms of a public presence on the street is important for this property. That's my only commentary. Other than that, good job.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyd?
I also don't recall how we can make our motions on these other than approval. I agree about activating this interior to the exterior to the neighborhood. I'm unsure of how we would then treat the interiors, because we would pretty much be requiring a full renovation of the interiors.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. So right now, your standard is to determine whether or not the project is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings. So as provided in the staff report on page 3, it's your within your purview to determine whether or not the presentation by the applicant is meeting those standards. So it's whether or not you think the standards have been met based on the proposed rehabilitation plans that were presented by the applicant. I'm sorry.
So I think in that case, my point is our notes are conflicted. Is the Secretary of Interior is requesting that they make as few changes to historic characteristics as possible, and we would be if they were to have proposed a plan that put the public space in the front and just leveled the floor and removed the interior finishes, et cetera, it would be in conflict.
Well, I disagree that you have to level the floor in order to make it work with the historic diagram. I disagree with that. I think there are ways to make it work. What the Secretary of Interior Standards tells us is that a property shall be used for its historic purpose or replaced in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building and its site and environment. What is missing in the list of items in front of us is that when you come and you state that you're going to rehabilitate or preserve a property under the Secretary's standards, you could determine what period of time you want to take it back to. So this building is from 1900, 1904. They've determined that the pieces that they're going to retain are from around the 1930s. So they've determined what features they feel are most appropriate for them to retain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone has that ability to do that as a property owner, and that's where we are.
I guess
So-
also then, like, in our purview for the Secretary of Interior Standards, we're not really, I don't think that we have the jurisdiction to change the floor plan or put the public things toward the front. I know that we all would prefer to see that, but I'm not sure that that's in our jurisdiction.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. So that is correct. You're just determining whether or not they've met the standards for the rehabilitation, not addressing modification of their floor plan. But,
Right.
Okay.
So I would say from a architectural standpoint on the exterior, the concept of what you guys are doing, greatly appreciate the idea of going through, finding a historic building in an area that's typically kind of forgotten about, bringing that up to a level, looking at it as a landmark, and then using that to kind of create change. Absolutely commend that, and thank you guys for doing that. From a exterior side, I think you guys are meeting the standards from what they're looking at. You're looking at bringing that building from the exterior side back to what it was. Although we might not have the ability to say, here's what the interior footprint or floor plan should look like. As a member of the AIA, member of the AIA Tampa, and an architect, I would personally like to see some of that stuff up front. I understand why it's not from a functionality standpoint, but I do think as an owner and someone who, an organization that wants to look at changing kind of the environment and the surrounding side, I do think it would be nice to see that kind of reconsidered, to look at how that interior could play into bringing that public piece back up to the front. Any other items?
Well, I would certainly concur with that.
Would a commissioner like to make a motion for the ad valorem tax application?
Move to approve the ad valorem tax exemption application, Part 1, for the plans presented at this public hearing in case number ARC T21-03 for the property located at 1208 North Howard Avenue for the rehabilitation of this property, because based on the facts in the record, the proposed project is consistent with the Secretary of Standards for Rehabilitation and Guidelines for Rehabilitating Historic Buildings. There is a condition on this, as noted in the staff report. Approval of this Part 1 is pending or contingent upon the structure being designated as a local landmark. And that's the only condition I can put on this.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we'll take a quick 5-minute recess. Thank you.